Hey, welcome back, and I hope you haven't forgotten about the Missouri Compromise. The Missouri Compromise, if you remember, and you should, was a deal to divide the country. It was made law on March 6th, 1820. The Missouri Compromise was the legislation, the laws, that provided for the admission of Maine as a free state along with Missouri as a slave state, thus maintaining the power balance between the North and the South in the United States Senate. That was the whole big deal. Remember that the Senate, every state gets 2 senators. The small states, the big states, doesn't matter. They all get 2 senators. So that means there's always going to be the possibility of a tie. And what they had done is had all the free states and all the slave states number in the same amount. Population didn't matter quite as much because of the Senate. And no law can be passed without both parts of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, all agreeing. So as long as at least one body of Congress can't have a majority, then the slavery issue would not be resolved. And the can could be kicked down the road. That's what they wanted to be able to continue doing. As part of the compromise, slavery was made illegal north of the 3630 parallel, excluding Missouri because it's getting in special. The 16th United States Congress passed the legislation on March 3rd, 1820, and President James Monroe signed it on March 6, 1820. Earlier, on February 1819, the Democratic Republicans submitted 2 amendments to Missouri's request for statehood, which included restrictions on slavery. Southerners objected to any bill which imposed federal restrictions on slavery. However, with the Senate evenly split at the opening of the debates, both sections possessing 11 states, free and slave, the admission of Missouri as a slave state would have given the South an advantage. Northern critics, including Federalists and Democratic Republicans, objected to the expansion of slavery into the Louisiana Purchase territory on the Constitution. Using the Constitution's 3/5 rule, which gave extra Southern representation from their slaves and the slave population. Democratic Republicans in the North argued that a strict interpretation of the Constitution required that Congress act to limit the spread of slavery. That's because of the different compromises that had happened in the creation of the Constitution. Remember, they had these compromises that said that you could have your slavery now, but eventually you're going to have to start getting rid of it. And so the idea is that if you're going to follow the Constitution, if you're going to bring in the argument that you have to follow the Constitution, well, the Constitution has parts of it that talk about eventually getting rid of slavery. And by this point, 1820, eventually has come and gone. When Free Soil, in other words, no slavery Maine, asked for statehood to separate from Massachusetts and become its own thing, the Senate quickly linked the Maine and Missouri bills, making Maine's admission as a condition for Missouri to enter the Union with slavery unrestricted. As part of this, there would be no more slave states after Missouri north of 3630 parallel. The Missouri Compromise, proposed by Henry Clay, basically, if you're going to boil it down, Missouri gets to become a state, and it gets to be a slave state. Maine also gets to become a state, but it's a free state, so now we have 12 free and 12 slave states. Slavery is also banned in Louisiana Territory north of the 3630. That's Missouri's southern border. But is this really a good compromise? Does it actually solve anything? Or does it just say, hey, next generation, you guys deal with this issue? You decide. I hope you're learning, and I hope you're having fun.